the first caller who thinks that atheism is a religion, and it is just as damaging, or maybe more so, than the religion that we complain about. And this is Dominic. How are you, Dominic?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. You've got a little bit of a crackly line, but we'll do its best and we'll see how we go. What specifically would you like to talk about then?
Well, atheism is not really too different from the cultural religions that that you guys complain about, and it is a form of religion in its own. And not only that, atheists do have a God that they do worship, and it's called government, authority, and man's law.
Wow.
What? Excuse me.
Ben, would you like to go first? I have so much.
Yeah, let's, first of all, what is your definition of religion? Just so we can be on the same page.
Well, religion, if you actually break it down to its etymological root, its Latin root stands for religare, which basically means to tie or hold back or to bind mentally. So religion is basically someone has thoughts in their mind that are so precious to them that it blinds them to the truth and what's actually going on in the world, because their thoughts on the way the world works, their religion is all that exists in their mind.
So how does atheism meet that definition?
Because atheists are like Christians in the sense that they, like I said, worship government and man's law and think that man is the arbiter of truth and there's no such thing as laws that govern behavior. All the only laws that exist are the laws that can be seen and the laws that can be measured by scientific instruments. And this is a type of faith just like Christians have.
So I don't know if you've ever been, I want to address the point, first of all, about the government. Have you been in a room with atheists? Like, have you sat down and talked to a group of atheists?
Just about every atheist.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you, have you sat down and talked to a group of atheists?
Not a group, but I have talked to atheists before, and every one of them.
Have you listened to atheists? Have you listened to atheists talk to each other or talk to anybody about politics? Because I can tell you, and this is not objective, because I can't tell you the exact data on every single atheist conversation that's ever happened, but atheists argue with each other very often. And I don't think I've been in any room with a group of atheists where we have not argued politics with each other, or where we've all agreed on government. Like, I know a lot of atheists that are anarchists, lots of friends that actually take on the label of anarchist. And I have other atheist friends that are incredibly authoritarian conservative. I have atheist friends all over that spectrum. And to say that we all latch on to adhering to government is hilarious to me, because atheism doesn't have a standard political leaning or standard view on government. Atheism is just the answer to, are you convinced that a God exists? And our answer is in agreement that we would say, no, I'm not convinced that a God exists, but it doesn't mean anything else about how we relate to the government or each other, which is why it's such a problem to frame atheism as a group mentality. Like, we do say that we're a community in the sense that this particular group of atheists have certain things that we tend to agree on, such as humanism, skepticism, etc. But that's not necessarily an intrinsic part of being an atheist. Those are additional things that this particular subset of atheists have agreed upon. But you cannot say that all atheists have the same views on that. And more often than not, we don't. So I disagree with you fundamentally on that position.
it doesn't matter if you guys argue over trivial differences. The underlying principles of what atheists...
That's not... Hold on, though. That's not a trivial difference. It is a... Dominic, you claimed... No, Dominic, you claimed that part of this definition of what makes atheists religious is that we value government intervention in our lives and that we view the government as this important thing. So you made the claim that this is part of the definition. So you can't say that this is trivial when was the core argument that you gave.
I'm saying that the things that atheists argue about the differences of government are trivial, like a Democrat and a Republican, for example, arguing with each other.
So how would you say... No, but going back to your... Dominic, going back to your position, though, if you said that if we make government our God, then how do we have atheist anarchists?
Well, atheist anarchists are not real anarchists, and they don't understand how to usher in a true anarchist society.
Do you understand what a no true Scotsman fallacy is? Because that's what you're doing right now. What is the definition of a true anarchist? Do you need to be religious to be an anarchist? That's...
No, anarchy, the definition of anarchy is just basically without archons. It comes from Greeks when archons ruled over the city-states, and it basically just means without rulers. That's all anarchy is, and that's all anarchists want. But it's impossible to usher in true anarchy from an atheist perspective, because at the end of the day, they think matter is primary. They don't understand or even acknowledge the laws of behavior, and they think that secular morality, which is just basically moral relativism, where they think human beings get to decide what is right and wrong, these things can never create freedom. In fact, they are the enemies of freedom, because at the end of the day, and like I said, atheists may argue over trivial differences in the government, but at the end of the day, they all believe in an organization that has a monopoly on violence, and they believe that it has a right to tax people and impose their rights.
Dominic, you
on
have
everyone.
thus far given two definitions of two different words, and both definitions you've given archaic definitions of, which don't really involve the people you're speaking to. Hang on, no, wait. So why? I've got a question to ask you, and it relates to Ben. Ben's asking you about the no true Scotsman fallacy as well. Why are you ignoring so many definitions of words that are applicable to go with a very, very, very small, narrow definition which suits your argument? And then when it's being brought up, I'm asking you a question, sir. I'm asking you a question, and you will be quiet while I ask it, or I will mute you. Why are you using narrow definitions of words that only apply to the argument you are trying to make, and ignoring other definitions of those words, or indeed, in the case of anarchists, saying that they are not true anarchists, and making a logical fallacy to try and back up your argument? I'm asking you a direct question. Why are you using these narrow definitions?
They're not narrow definitions.
Yes, sir, they are. Yes, sir, they are.
The etymological root of the word I was just
that doesn't matter what the root of the word is.
And they will help.
Right. Dominic, that doesn't matter what the root of the word is. I have open in front of me an academic dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary, which is the academic version of the Oxford Dictionary. It goes into the history and common usage of words. The definition you're trying to give of atheism is tucked away under the fourth definition as subsection B, and is a pursuit, interest, or movement followed with great deviation. No, you have given your own narrow definition. I am reading
anarchism, and I defined religion. I didn't define.
No, you didn't.
Atheism.
What you did No, you did. You gave a very narrow definition. You did. There are many, many other definitions of atheism. There are many other definitions of
So
atheism. There are
you're
many other
basically doing
definitions
the
of
same thing
religion.
that you're accusing me of doing by cherry picking
No,
definitions.
I'm not cherry picking. What I'm saying is there is more than one definition. I'm not saying this definition is the correct one or this definition is the correct one. I'm pointing out that there is a wide spectrum of definitions, and you are choosing a narrow spectrum to try and make a particular point. Now you are talking to two atheists, and you can ask us what our personal opinions are rather than telling us what the definition is that we should adhere to. And that's how conversations work, sir. You don't imprint.
Do you
Go ahead.
support taxation?
What has that got to do with anything?
There was a motorcycle that just drove by. I asked,
Okay.
do you support taxation?
What has that got to do with the question you asked?
'Cause
What
it has to do-
relevance is
If you
it?
support taxation, then you support government.
No, that's not necessarily the
going to
case,
bed.
sir.
And not all atheists
Yeah,
would agree
yes,
with
it
you.
is.
Like I said, there are atheists all over the political spectrum. So even if I fall in a particular place, I am not speaking for everybody who's an atheist. Like, you need to separate out, instead of muddying the waters and combining different groups of people into one definition. Like, you're equating atheists with people that like strong government, which these are totally separate issues. And it's like if I said no, like if
just secular,
Dominic, let's say if I made a statement and I said that Christians all like to I don't know, play the guitar, and I just made the claim that these two things were connected. There are a lot of Christians that like to play the guitar, and there are a lot of people that don't. But if I said, okay, well, but all the Christians I know play the guitar, and so I'm going to extrapolate this out and say that Christians actually like all revolve around this guitar playing. Like that, those are two separate things, and they have nothing to do with each other. Playing the guitar has nothing to do with your belief system.
Between your example and mine is that your example is trivial and doesn't really matter. You know, the real thing to equate what I said to would be all Christians believe in Jesus as their Lord and Savior. That would be
no, they don't.
No,
they don't. No, they don't.
And they don't. But also, Dominic, something else that you're doing here is you're taking, like, your analogy is terrible as well, because you're taking the comparison for Christians and then a core tenet of their beliefs, whereas atheists, like, beyond the God question, there is nothing political that is a core tenet. We don't even have tenets of our belief system. We don't have a belief system to have tenets for. It's just are you convinced God exists or are you not convinced? That is it. That is the only thing that makes an atheist, right? So saying that it's a comparison between saying, well, Christians and then their belief in God, that's not at all the same, because atheism does not have tenets. And I think the problem is, like, you're intentionally framing atheism into a structure that you're familiar with. And I think that's something that I used to do too when I was in Christianity and when I was religious. Like, my brain couldn't process beyond what I thought, and I didn't understand. I couldn't process not having a religious system or not having a structure to my worldview. And I think it's maybe disorienting to have to step out of that, but you have to reframe how you think about the question. And I don't know if you're willing to do that.
Let me ask you something. Is it true that in general atheist means that one does not believe in a creator or higher power? Would you say that's true?
I would say I would kind of be careful with the wording, because there are some people that are atheists that are spiritual, and I don't identify with that group of people. But there are some that would say that there's something supernatural that may have, like, participated in creation of the world that's not a deity. So I think theism is specifically related to a deity, right? And we don't accept a deity.
Yeah, and this is why you've got to be careful, Dominic, with kind of telling people what they believe and giving definitions, because I live in Britain and there are lots and lots and lots of atheists in the country I live in, but there are also lots of people who believe in spiritual things, in the supernatural and in higher powers. But none of them believe, not all of these people believe in a deity, in a creator God. So we've got to be very careful, and this is why it's important to have the conversation. We're not having a go at you. We're not kind of attacking you by saying you've got to be careful how to use these definitions. We're telling you because it's really, really important. If we don't want to talk past each other and we want a genuine, honest conversation with each other, it's very, very important to understand what we mean by the terms that we're using.
Okay. So, what weren't you understanding of what I was saying?
Well, it was the definition was using was a very narrow definition, and the kind of what we've got, the notes we've got from the call screener. The notes we've got from the call screener are that you've said atheism is a religion, and it's just as damaging than the religion that we complain about a lot. Now, I don't necessarily complain about religion as a thing, as a blanket thing. I disagree with some aspects of religion, and I will talk on those. But I don't disagree with, I don't complain. I don't walk around complaining about religion as a blanket thing. I do a lot of study into religion. I enjoy studying religion, and I have a lot of religious friends who I enjoy talking to. So it's not just simply a case of we walk around and complain about things. So when you've got a question, when you've got something and you're asking is atheism just as damaging, we must be very, very careful to kind of get to what you mean specifically by atheism, whether that applies to the people you're talking to, whether it's me and Ben, and how that relates to the actual religion you're practicing. So let's take, for example, if you're saying atheism is damaging because you two individuals believe that, we've got government and we should pay taxes. Well, let's compare that to the religion that you, not everybody, not make a blanket statement about religion in general, but you specifically, sir, the religion you practice. And let's relate that conversation to you're, for example, paying tithing. And if those two things are comparative. Now, that's not a blanket statement about all our beliefs, but we can compare aspects of those things and see if they're like relative and match each other.
Okay, when I say atheist, I'm talking about someone who generally does not believe in a higher power, that there is no spiritual domain, matter is primary, and essentially the only laws that exist are the ones that are physical laws that we can see or our scientific instruments can detect and measure. That's generally what atheists think. And
no, that's not what atheists think. And no, that's not what atheists think. That's what you think atheists think. And we have abstract concepts. I'm an atheist. I believe in abstract concepts which aren't necessarily measurable by scientific instruments. That automatically takes me out of your category of atheism. So who is it you're speaking to? Are you talking to me as an atheist? Are you talking to Ben as an atheist? Or are you making a blanket statement of let's say, a figure of 1,000 atheists and hoping that one of them fits into your category?
I'm making a blanket statement over, we'll say, about 90% of atheists.
So what convinces you that what convinces you that your statement is 90% of atheists? Where did you get that number from?
Oh, I just made it up.
So how do you? So then, why can you use that as a metric for anything?
Because
are we just going to use your? So if I made a statement about Christians and if I said that, if I made a statement that talked about the 90% of Christians do X, does that mean we should just go off of that number because I said that was the right thing? Why would you believe me on that? So this, in the same vein, like, why would I believe someone who's not an atheist claiming they know what 90% of atheists do or do not do? And especially when you admitted that was your own just made up number.
Because this is what the people who the atheists look up to mainly think. Like
which atheists, sir? If Dominic, if I was to say to you, okay, right, 90% of Christians believe that the Book of Mormon is the last testament of Jesus Christ, and that we will all go to heaven and have physical planets under our domain. Would you agree that I would be making an accurate statement about what Christians believe?
Would I know?
No. So,
I didn't expect.
So if we are having that conversation, then Dominic,
I don't.
If we are having that conversation, would that be helpful if I was talking to you as a person? Would that be an accurate conversation for me to make that claim and insist we use that data for that conversation? And no matter what you said, no matter how many times, Dominic,
I just came up with the number.
No matter how many times you tell me, I do not believe
you can get stuck
the
on
Book
the
of
figure,
Mormon
but
is...
overall, you're just detracting.
I'm not talking about the figure.
Dominic,
I'm talking about the argument.
Dominic, the point is that you have essentially in making these statements. I don't know if you intentionally are doing this or not, but you have put yourself out there as the arbiter of what atheists think and believe. And that's where our problem is. Instead of asking us, two atheists here, and having a conversation about what do atheists believe, what would you consider? I'm getting very frustrated. I'm getting very frustrated with you, and I'm muting you because this is ridiculous. Like, you came in here to a room with atheists. The whole chat is full of atheists. There are plenty of people that you can talk to and have an open dialogue with. And I don't know if you understand how hostile it is to come into a room and say, I know you better than you do. And so I'm going to make assumptions, and not just assumptions, stereotypical assumptions based on what I think your life is about. Does that sound like good conversation? And I don't know where I'm going with that particular statement, but do you get why we're frustrated with you and why that's kind of inappropriate to do? You're back. You're unmuted.
You see, it's really not hard to generalize what most atheists have gone through. I'm going to assume the vast majority of atheists grew up in a religious household in this nation.
Dominic,
Christian.
do you not? I'm so frustrated with this because you're going off of generalizations and assumptions, and I don't know if you understand how stereotypes, assumptions, and generalizations are often wrong. Right? There's even a fallacy called the hasty generalization.
You grew up in a religious household and you realized it was wrong, and then you eventually became an atheist and rejected.
But you don't know what led me. Do you know what? Dominic, shut up. Do you know what led me to become an atheist?
Told me.
Did I tell you how? No, I told you that I was religious. Did I tell you what got me out of religion?
Yes, you did.
How? What did I tell you?
You did not tell me what got you out of religion. You just.
So I didn't tell. So you don't know. You don't know who I am. You don't know my story. You don't know what convinced me or didn't convince me. So stop. Right. I didn't tell you. You assumed. So stop assuming and listen and engage, or we're going to hang up on you, because it's incredibly dishonest to just say what you think somebody else's life is like and then base your arguments on that, because it's wrong.
I think generally, though, I'm right. It applies to you, what I was just talking about, though. And you even confirmed it.
Okay, this is a waste of time. This is a waste of time. Like, I don't care. I don't care if Richard wants to keep up this conversation, but I'm dropping you because this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, this is where we get into problems in society, where people generalize about a community and then oppress them. They make up these fake arguments about what they think a whole community is about, and they use that against them in often violent ways. This is what we're seeing with the LGBTQ community right now, is people are making generalizations that queer people are groomers and sexual predators. And they're saying, well, I know your community better than you do, so I'm going to put restrictions on your freedom. I'm going to take over your life and tell you what you can and cannot do. And I'm going to dehumanize you. And that is what's happening here. I do not have the patience for this today. I'm sorry. But if you want to come back and have an honest conversation and you want to stop generalizing and stop telling us who we are, then I'll be willing to talk to you. But in the meantime, I hope you think about this.
Yeah,
Dominic, I don't yell a lot on this show, and this is a rare time.
Dominic, please come back with a question rather than a statement about us, because it's very, very frustrating when you're just talking past us. And, you know, I was quite happy, and I even said to you, if you want to talk about paying taxes, we can compare it, because that's what the original question you had was about comparing these systems. So we could compare it to something like religious tithing and see if those things match up. And you just didn't go there. You just carried on making straw man arguments, and that's extremely frustrating.